I'm Casey Main, a jaded, hopelessly romantic, health-conscious party girl searching for meaning. And my mission is simple: to make life better, for myself and for you. I believe real change always comes from within, and the Better You podcast was born to discover hidden parts of ourselves and our stories. A safe place where we have real, honest conversations with people from all walks of life to help better understand ourselves so we can become better versions of ourselves. So come along on this journey of discovery with me so you can become a better you. And welcome to another episode of the Better You podcast, where we focus on better understanding our relationship with ourselves. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Casey Main, and I am very appreciative that you have decided to spend some time with me. Well, April is finally coming to a close. This seems like a very, very long month, and we are entering May, which I am excited about because it is my birthday month. Yay! And there's all kinds of fun episodes coming up on the podcast. So next week, we are talking with Katie B., who is the host of the very popular Real Rebel podcast. And I just love this conversation. To be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what direction it would go in, but I'm so happy with how it turned out. It is definitely a spiritual episode. We get into all things masculine versus feminine energy, who we really are, meaning souls or spirits having a human experience, not the other way around. And she gives me a huge aha moment about my relationship with anger. Like, she really blows my mind. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's definitely going to change some aspects of how I view life. So that's what's coming next week. In today's episode, we are talking about the one addiction that the majority of us have, and that is to our phones or our devices, whether they be iPads, tablets, Fitbits, smartwatches, etc. And there might be some moments in this that you feel triggered of kind of like, oh, well, like, this is ridiculous. Why does it matter? And I'm telling you, because I even did when I re-listened to it, when you feel triggered, it's because you know it's true. Like, we all know it's true. Like, we look at our phones too much. We care too much about the little notifications. We rely on them too much. We, want to get those emails and those likes and those comments. I mean, it is what it is. And it's nothing to really be ashamed of, because I think so many of us are in the same boat, and I have no problem admitting it. It's definitely something that I want to work on. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I'm thinking this conversation was kind of that extra nudge to push me over the edge. A great episode to listen to after this one is episode 43, Brainwash Yourself to Make Better Decisions, with Dr. Austin Perlmutter. So Dr. Perlmutter is a physician and his dad is a neurologist, and together they wrote a book titled Brainwash: Detox Your Mind for Clearer Thinking, Deeper Relationships, and Lasting Happiness, which looks at the neuroscience of our decision-making, and our device usage has a lot to do with that as well. So if you're kind of into this topic, then definitely check out that episode also. And then another relevant one to listen to is episode 33, Defending Against EMF Radiation Exposure, with Daniel DeBon, who is the founder and CEO of Defender Shield, which is the most effective electronic device EMF radiation shielding technology ever developed. It is the first and only EMF radiation shielding capable of blocking up to virtually 100% of EMF radiation from mobile devices such as laptops, tablets, cell phones, and any of the other devices that we have. And if you don't know what I mean by EMF, then definitely listen to that episode to learn more about it. Basically, our devices put off electromagnetic field or energy that can be very harmful to our health and our bodies over time. And in that episode, Daniel gives really great tips on how to limit your exposure. So he's not saying to get rid of your devices, just simple things you can do to limit the harmful exposure, which usually has to do with either like longevity of exposure or like how close we have things to us. So like putting your phone up to your ear, or like the Bluetooth AirPod earbuds, those aren't so good. So definitely listen to that episode. Lots of good information in there. And you can get a discount off of their products using code TheBetterYou. So it's episode 33, and then you can go to defendershield.com and use code TheBetterYou, all one word, for a 20% discount. Okay, so let's talk about today's guest. Dr. Lori Whatley is a clinical psychologist who specializes in the effects of digital device usage on both individuals and businesses. With over 25 years of experience, Dr. Whatley has worked with thousands of clients, both domestic and international. As a thought leader in her field, she has been featured in Inc., Yahoo News, ESPN, Business Insider, plus many local and regional publications. Her first book, titled The Effects of Texting on Marital Relationships, offers a poignant data-backed critique of texting within marriage, including its often negative impact. Her new book, Connected and Engaged, takes a look at the role excessive digital device usage has on our lives. From stress, empathy, intuition, and vulnerability to focus, sleep, communication, and community, this book covers a wide range of topics, inviting the reader to evaluate their own lives and overcome reliance on digital devices for overall well-being. You guys, seriously, I had so many mess ups saying the word digital in that little bio. Like, I had to edit it 87 million times. I don't know why I have a problem saying the word digital. Okay. Anyways, in this episode, we discuss why and how we are all addicted to our devices and the negative implications on our lives, the mindset games being played that keep us glued to our devices, how to keep all the good technology brings but decrease the bad, the effects of our highly technological world on dating and relationships, and actionable steps to break our addiction. So I think this is a great conversation and really kind of rounds out how we look at the impact that our devices are having. So in the EMF episode with Daniel Devon, we were looking at kind of the biological component of what the EMF is potentially doing. Then in the episode with Dr. Perlmutter, we're looking more at kind of the neuroscience, a little bit of the psychological component of how that's then affecting our decision making. And then now with Dr. Whatley, we are talking again from the psychological component and how it is making us more like disconnected from our lives and disengaged from our relationships. So really kind of rounding out that topic, which I really love. So that's it. We're going to go ahead and jump into this conversation with Dr. Whatley. So let's start with a little bit of your background, your education, and kind of your specialty.
Okay. Well, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a private practice in Atlanta. I also see many clients internationally, and I really enjoy that because there are a lot of places in our world that don't offer therapy. And so I'm able to offer therapy to people all over the world. And that's quite beautiful. And I enjoy learning about other cultures and all, so that really works out great. I have my doctorate is in clinical psychology. And as I was getting my doctorate, in my practice, I was seeing so much like couples coming in, and it always something to do with a screen came up. He's always texting, she's always watching TV, something about screens. And I started thinking, I'm going to need to have solutions here to help address this. This is coming more and more. Parents are bringing teenagers in who, are tired and their grades are bad and the parents don't understand it's because they're staying up all night on their screens. So it just became very dominant in my practice, an issue. And so I decided to do my doctoral project on that and found it just fascinating and thought, this is vital information for our world. And I want to share this with everybody. So I wrote a book, Connected and Engaged, which came out in February. And I work with lots of businesses and individuals and families on helping them manage their digital distractions, some which they don't even realize they have.
Yes, this just could not be a more relevant topic now in the bigger picture of now, but then even kind of more specifically now as we're still and I'm sure when this airs, unfortunately, we'll probably still be in a little bit of the corona world or immediate post-coronavirus world where a lot of us have been quarantined at home. And so I'm sure we're spending even more time on our devices. But I have no problem admitting that this has been something I've definitely struggled with as well. And it almost became more frustrating when I became aware of it, that every time I'm driving and I stop at a red light, like I've got my phone on the front seat and I check it to see if I've got, a new email or whatever. And when I became aware of that, I'm like, why, what difference does it make? Like, you're not responding to these emails right now while you're driving. Like, why do you feel like you need to know as soon as these things come in? And yet even being aware of it, like I can't stop myself from doing it. And it's super frustrating. So like, this is just, it's a huge issue.
Well, you're right. It is very relevant. I realized as I was doing my research, I decided to do a little research on myself, and I left my phone home one day purposely while I ran errands, and honestly felt lost and naked without it. I was only gone for an hour, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, here I am writing a book about this, and I am just as involved in my digital devices as everyone. And so I made changes and noticed a big difference. And I realized if I could not leave my phone for an hour, then probably I needed to address that. I would even feel the phantom vibrations when I didn't have it on me. There's been a lot of research about phones and how having them even in our vicinity is a distraction. And we have to realize that the business model for the people who make these devices is to keep us engaged as long as possible because, that's important for them. That's how they make money. And so they do that by doing things like the like button on Facebook. We literally get a hit of dopamine every time we get a like. Just like if, let's say, I was addicted to chocolate and I would eat chocolate, I would get a hit of dopamine. It's the same thing, just a different substance. And so naturally, we become more and more addicted. And that's why we can't put them down.
Yeah. So I'd heard that before about the little dopamine hits, and it totally makes sense. So there is kind of a biological or neurochemistry component to it. But it's funny you say that about the phantom vibration. So I've never experienced that, but I have experienced where I hear the sound of my text message ding and it hasn't gone off.
Right. That little ping.
Yeah. And that's just weird. But when that happened, it didn't even like make me think of anything. But I'll have moments or I'll have times in my life where I'm like, okay, you don't need to bring your phone to do this. And I've been successful in instances of like, if I'm going out to dinner with my boyfriend, like I'll leave it in the car back when we were able to go out to dinner at restaurants. But like, if I'm going to go for a walk or go run an errand and I think to myself, okay, don't bring your phone. You don't need to bring your phone. I then convince myself otherwise because of all these, what I think are logical reasons of, well, what if somebody needs to get in touch with me or so-and-so calls or somebody needs me for something. So how much of it is this component of we feel maybe more important than we actually are? Or we tie it to that kind of like safety emergency fear.
And that's really just a rationalization, kind of, like the rationalizations that I guess any person who has an addiction, well, if I just eat this one piece because, one piece of chocolate, which is what I'm addicted to, is actually good for me, one piece. So maybe if I just eat one piece and then that turns into two pieces and on it goes. So, those are just kind of conversations that we have with ourselves that keep us using, so to speak. And I have these assessments on my website, and they're free. I have one for businesses, one for, personal use. And you can go on there. It's just a quick 10 questions or so, and you can score it and kind of see if you might have a problem with too much device usage.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely know that I have a problem. I'm not proud of it, but I know that I do. And I really think the majority of us do at this point in time in our lives. So talk a little bit about how did we get to this point, and why are we all addicted to it? What are the psychological components that are at play now that didn't used to be, not even really that long ago, but before, I would say, I guess, before the iPhone. I imagine the iPhone is when this all really went to hell.
Right. And you have to know that there are behavioral psychologists that help develop these devices. They understand clearly how to keep us coming back. Let's say the slot machines in Vegas. I'll use that analogy because I think it helps to understand clearly when you mention how we are psychologically addicted. Those slot machines are set up so that you get intermittent scheduled releases, intermittent rewards, right? So you put in some money, nothing. Then maybe the fifth time you put something in, you win. And then you do it again. You're just about to quit. And maybe the eighth time you put something in, you win. So you get just enough to keep you coming back. And, that's kind of how this works. The like button, the got mail, that was something that was really very psychological. And, people will have that. Let's say they have their phone in their pocket and that little ding goes off at dinner. They just can't sit there. They can't sit still. They have got to go, we're very curious as humans. They've got to see who sent them this or what was that. And, it's we don't realize how deep we are into it and how disconnected we are with each other, I think. And also the physiological components of it. Let's say, the number one reason that people come to see me is because of anxiety. And quite often, especially in the younger group of millennials, I can say, we can talk about what their usage practices are for their digital devices. And, I stay up really late playing video games, and then I'm real tired for work the next day, and I feel jumpy. And at night when we sleep is when our brains heal from the anxiety of just a normal day. So if we're not sleeping well, then our brains don't leave that anxious state and enter a peaceful state. And so we have anxiety and it builds. And, the blue light from the screens, that interrupts our sleep. It stimulates our brains. Too much screen usage does. I tell people, if we can turn our screens off an hour or two before bedtime, we're really going to give ourselves a much better chance of a good night's sleep, which is essential, especially right now during this virus where we want to keep our immune systems up and strong. Sleep is essential.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I moved my phone from sleeping in my bedroom with me, on my nightstand, outside of the room, because I would, check social media or whatever, right before I went to bed. And then I would use it as an alarm clock. And so that was my rationalization. Well, this is my alarm clock. And then I was like, okay, I can buy a cheap alarm clock and put my phone outside of the room. So I have been successful in that regard, but checking it first thing in the morning, and I will say to myself, don't look at it, just have your coffee, sit and have some morning time, don't look at it. But there's something about that, I guess, curiosity of what did I miss overnight, that pulls me to rationalize checking it real quick.
Absolutely.
And then I think that I can still have that quiet moment, but what I guess whatever I looked at, that's now infiltrated my brain.
Right. Well, you have to think about it. If you're looking at the news is set up to capture our attention, and nothing captures our attention better than chaos and drama. So if you begin your day with that, Or same with social media, or even if you open your emails, you're going to probably see at least one thing that you don't want to see that early in the morning, maybe negative. Your day is set. Your mood for the day is set in the first hour of your day. So I always encourage people not to look at their phones for the first hour, maybe two of the day, and do as you recommended, or as you said, have your coffee, maybe do some reading from an actual book, or go for a walk, or piddle around in your garden. Do something that doesn't involve devices to get your day started off well.
Well, so I think part of the issue is, and this is like such a double-edged sword, but there's so much good that can come from our devices. So
Absolutely.
let's say, okay, a lot of people read on a screen, a Kindle or something. So if they're going to read first thing in the morning, great practice, but that's required a device. Or if they listen to an Audible book, like that's still, you've got to unlock your phone to start that, and you're going to see stuff. Same with like listening to a podcast, or if you work out and you use an app on your phone or music on your phone, it's like, and I'm sure this is all by design, but like all these apps that are for self-care or things that are good for us live on our phone, which then keeps us even more attached to those devices.
If we're really, really serious about it, though, there are ways that we can have our phone set up so that we don't see those other things. Definitely, we can make that happen. I agree with you, though. I do want to say technology. I'm not like a person that thinks technology is terrible. I think technology is fabulous. It makes my life so much easier, but I can do so much faster. Just getting my doctorate, having a computer as opposed to when I was getting my master's and having to go to the library and do all that research by hand. I mean, it was just so much easier. But I have learned to really respect technology and respect myself and the way I use it. And now I choose to have control over technology rather than having it control me. So it's really just about balance and becoming intentional about the way that we use the technology.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to get into some of your advice on how we can maybe start to unravel our addiction. But first I want to talk about like what are the implications of this addiction in terms of our relationship with ourselves, how we relate and connect with others. Like what is this doing to us?
Well, I think as I said, our anxiety levels are much higher, and the twin of anxiety is depression. So anxiety and depression is much higher. We're very distracted. I don't know if you've noticed, but just not being so out there in the world just during this virus, and being at home and being, out of the hustle and the bustle has really, I think we're going to all come out a little bit calmer and more peaceful because of it, and maybe hopefully have changed some habits because we've learned what's really important to us. And one of those things is real connection with real people. We're all really missing hugs, eye contact, hand holding, handshaking. We're missing that human contact. And so that's one of the things we know, that digital device usage that is exorbitant causes us to be detached. And so our focus is definitely affected by it. And it definitely affects us relationally.
Yeah, focus, I definitely recognize that within myself. I mean, even earlier today, I was getting my oil change and I brought a book and I was trying to read, and they've got background music playing and there's, people talking and just all this stuff going on. And I was having a really hard time focusing on what I was reading. And then I stopped and I thought, I'm like, has this always been difficult for me, or is my ability to focus just severely weakened because it's like all of the technology
Yes.
and the bouncing back and forth from I'm checking a text message and then I'm posting something on social media and then I'm answering an email and just bounce back has made us all like some level of ADD.
Oh, absolutely. We've definitely seen higher numbers of that and can attribute it to too much tech usage. And, the thing we have to think about is our children because, kids' brains are developing the first 8 years of their lives. Their brains are really developing. And if we introduce them to too much tech too early, that does infringe upon their development. There is a reason why the people who make these devices out, the tech kings and queens of the world in Silicon Valley, they don't allow their children to use these devices. They don't have these devices in their school out there until they're much, much older. And they understand developmentally how it impacts our kids.
Yeah, that's a good point because, and I had a previous guest on, Dr. Austin Perlmutter, and he wrote the book Brainwash with his father, and he talks about from a neuroanatomy perspective, our prefrontal cortex, which is involved in critical thinking and helping us make better decisions, isn't even really fully developed and online until we're in our early to mid 20s. So like I feel like there is a neurological, like a scientific neurological component to, I mean, these devices in general, like we talked about the little hits of dopamine, but especially if they're introduced before our brain is even fully developed.
Absolutely. Yes. I can walk in, I do a lot of work in schools, and I can go in a school and sit down and have lunch with kids and tell you if that school, allows a lot of device usage because the kids, they can't connect as much and they don't look you in the eye and they're not able to interact with you. They're very distracted. The signs are, if you know what the signs are, you can see them very clearly. I go out to dinner and I see these precious young families with their small children, and they, the moms go in their purses at dinner time and hand all these kids their screens to look at to entertain them during dinner. And these families are literally sitting there, looking at screens. And my husband's always looking at me like, don't do it, because I just want to go and say, I just need to share some vital research with you. Like, your kids need to learn how to be socialized and how to, they need to learn how to sit at the table and interact and behave. And I know that I'm a mom. I know I've had kids. I know what it's like to really want to have a nice, quiet dinner at the end of the day. And, handing those kids devices to babysit them, it's really, really not good for them. And we're missing such an opportunity to have a learning moment at dinner with them.
Yes. And, I've definitely witnessed that as well. And it's hard for me to have an opinion because I'm not a mother, so I don't know how difficult it is to get a child to sit still at dinner. But I just think from kind of the scientific component of their, little developing eyes and brains staring out at the stuff, that it can't be good. So I definitely hear you on that. And I think it's like, how is it affecting our ability to communicate? So I think about just within my lifespan, how all this messaging first started. So it first started as like AOL Instant Messenger, and then texting became a thing, and then now, and so a lot of times, like in relationships, you would end up getting into these, or at least I would, I'm sure other people did too, these arguments or these heavy conversations that are all via text message. And then now just the messaging component is huge in the dating world with all the dating apps. So what is communicating through devices doing to our ability to communicate face to face as humans?
Well, that's a really good question, because my doctoral project ended up becoming a book. And that was my first book, and it's on Amazon, The Effects of Texting on the Marital Relationship. It's kind of an academic book full of statistics. So, but my next book, Connected and Engaged, is more user friendly, and it talks about what you've just mentioned. And yes, so much is lost through texting messages. I recommend, I can't tell you how many couples I work with that, they got broken up with over a text, or they come in to see me, they had some major fight over a text, or and I always say, well, there's a lot, you miss a lot when you have serious, important conversations over text. And really that, text should just be saved and used for, logistical information, like I'll meet you so-and-so at 5:00, because, we can just really misunderstand things. And especially with the dating situation, like, you just really can't get a very real idea of someone without sitting there and looking into their eyes. And, we pick up even unconsciously on body language. And, I just think it's really important to have in-person connections for important things like relationships.
I agree. And I think within the dating world, and I've talked about this on a couple podcast episodes where I was a guest. And again, it's easier for me to say this because I'm not currently in the dating world and navigating all the apps and trying to figure out that world. But I like to think that if I matched with someone, I would want to meet up with them in person as soon as possible. Yeah. Like, I don't want to spend all this time messaging back and forth, because I know myself and what I'll do from years and years of projecting onto people what I wanted them to be, rather than just seeing them for who they were showing me to be. I'm going to read these messages to be like Mr. Right and Mr. Wonderful and how I want somebody to be. And because you can't pick up on tone of voice, inflection, like any of that, which shows so much of personality.
Yes.
And then on the flip side, when you're in a relationship, at least I know historically for me, it's like I was more courageous, or I had the guts to say things via text message that I maybe wouldn't say in person, because I'm not a very confrontational person. But then if you really step back and look at that, like if you're in a relationship where you can't say the things you really want to say, maybe that's something to look at.
That's true. That's a good point. But you're also made a good point about the keyboard warriors. I mean, we've all been keyboard warriors every now and then, and that can get really ugly. And we can say things, sometimes that we might not say in person, and they come across as really harsh, and it harms a relationship much more so maybe than sitting down and having that conversation in person. I'll give you a funny example. I talked about this in my book, Connected and Engaged. I gave my daughter a grocery list at Christmas. I said, "Hey, will you stop and pick up some stuff for me real quick?" And she said, I'm in a hurry. Is it just a few things so I can go through the quick line? And I said, yes, I'll make sure it's less than 10 items. So I numbered them to show her, that it was 10 items. So I put like 1 toothpaste, 2 eggs, 3 milk, 4 steak, 5 chocolate cake. Well, total misunderstanding. And she came to my house and she had 5 chocolate cakes, and really I looked at it and I couldn't be angry with her, because it really could have read that way. And it's just all about, the interpretation of the reader. And so when we're having an in-person conversation, we can kind of explain more, and, our voice inflection, it comes in and it's important. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's just, it's really scary to think that we create and build relationships all online.
Well, and I'm not anti-online, but it's just more kind of as a way to connect with people. But it's more kind of the more you live in that messaging world where you're really kind of guessing what somebody is like, the higher risk of like a big disappointment when they don't turn out to be the person you've created them to be in your mind based on how you read the messages.
Oh,
So I think ultimately it ends up using a lot more mental and emotional energy than had you just arranged to meet for coffee or a drink or
yeah,
whatever.
I think the dating apps and all are great because, you can use them and you can make a coffee date to go meet the person rather than just completely getting to know them online. As you said, I mean, the way that I read something is all about me and my experiences up to that point, and it doesn't it has nothing to do with the person who's sending the message.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that's a really great point that we can take and use in just all aspects of life. How we view anything is
Yeah.
based on everything we're bringing to the table, not necessarily what somebody else said or did or whatever. Okay, I want to start to talk about what we can do to help ourselves in this situation, both from an individual standpoint, but then also like if you have a family and children, like what are some real actionable steps we can take to, I guess, decrease our addiction?
Right. Well, I think first you have to really realize that you might have a little bit of one. And as I said, you can take that free assessment on my website, or you can actually leave your phone somewhere and see what that feels like for you for a little while and not have it available. For many people, that feels really scary, or your laptop, or, just try to step away from your device and see what that's like. See how that affects you. But definitely no screens at bedtime, no screens in the bed. I know people have TVs in their rooms. I don't. I don't really think that's a good idea, but I think, a room where you go and watch TV is much better. But just being aware of how we use our email. And the notifications that come on. So if I'm online doing one thing and I'm constantly getting notifications, then I'm zipping over to what I was notified about. It takes 20 minutes to get your focus back on the first thing you were looking at. So imagine how much time is lost during the day. And we know that if we use our screens and our digital devices properly, we can be more creative and more productive. I've started checking my emails in the morning, and I answer them all in the morning. And then I have a little note that comes on and says, I won't be checking my mail again until 5 o'clock. And kind of you train people. They just know that you'll answer them at 5 if you don't answer them at 9. And so then I don't look at it again until 5. And then I answer them all so that the next day, I start that process over again. In the middle of the day, I get so much more done now than I was getting done. It's just amazing. Much more creative, much more productive. And I just feel a little more liberated when I can step away from my email and not be constantly tethered to it during the day. And, it distracts me. That's one thing when we go out on a date with our partners, leaving, like you said, leaving the phone in the car, even when we're riding with them in the car, not taking our phone out and just visiting with them. And that's a wonderful time to have a captive audience when you're in the car. And, just having good conversations and connecting rather than, many people are scrolling and liking when they're in the car and with maybe someone else is driving and they're doing that as a passenger, and they're missing a good opportunity, I think, to connect.
Yeah, I love your point about the emails. That's something I've toyed around with doing. First of all, I'd heard the statistic that when you get one of those little kind of you're working on your computer and then you get the little tiny window that comes up to tell you, you've got whatever email, that even just that short little
Yes.
steal of your attention,
Mhm.
that it does take like 20 minutes to refocus back on what you're doing. So I have not turned off those notifications yet, partly because I don't really know how, but that is something I want to do. I've also considered the email times. So maybe do the like 0 inbox in the morning and then not check it again till the end of the day and not check it in that middle part of the day. What I find so funny though is, and I appreciate that you do the almost like the auto reply or the out of office or whatever, so people know, but it's on the flip side of our own addiction to technology is our expectation that everybody else is.
Yeah.
So it's that expectation that if I email you, you're going to respond, within a couple hours. Like the fact that you even need to say, I'm not responding. And the one that really gets me that I think is so funny is the automatic do not disturb text message while driving things. Like when I get those, I'm like, wow, I'm not really expecting you to immediately respond anyways. You could also just not respond. I don't need to know you're driving. Like it's crazy how much we expect someone else to immediately respond to us.
Absolutely. And every personality profile is different, but there are personality profiles that, they always want to have their inbox at 0. They always want to answer everything immediately. And so you can see how it would just be really especially hard for that personality profile to have all these unfinished tasks hanging out there. But if they don't know about them, and then it's probably easier for them. Just imagine that there was a child walking around behind you all day, tugging on your shirt. Just to everything that you were doing, they were tugging on your shirt. It would obviously be very distracting and probably raise your anxiety level a little bit by, a few hours of that. And that's really kind of what's happening to our brains with the constant notifications and the vibrations and the interruptions and distractions. It's kind of like a constant tugging at us.
So that's a really good point about the different personality profiles. And I've seen memes about this, and I've even joked with friends. So like I am definitely the person that I don't want any of those little, I have an iPhone, any of those little red bubbles, those red bubble notifications. Like I want to clear them out.
Absolutely.
And I have a very good friend of mine who is not that person at all. She's got, like hundreds of unread emails in her inbox. She's got unanswered texts. If somebody just texts her like, okay, she doesn't feel the need to go in and clear that out. And that would drive me wild.
Absolutely.
So for people like me, what should we do? Should we remove, because I know you can go into the notification settings and just remove the ability to have that red dot. Like, should we?
I think so. You can do that. You can remove the notifications. You can actually fix your phone so that it's just a straight up phone, and you can't, all that stuff that you see when you open it is all in files or folders. So you can't even see it without intentionally going in and opening it up. I don't know if you've ever. I heard Tristan Harris speak, and he was a person who helped invent many of the much of the technology that we use with our social media. And he decided one day that ethically he didn't feel good about doing that anymore. And he's a young fella, I think I'm guessing in his 30s. So, he did this and he decided, like, I don't feel okay about doing this. I know what, these technologies are doing to individuals and families. And so he has started, he has started a website, and he talks about ways to, to fix your phone so that you aren't able to see all those distractions and your computer, and turn off the notifications and all those things that are set up to steal our attention. He has come up with a plan to not have that, and to remove all that from your devices. And it really does work. He has I think it's called Time Well Spent is his website. It's really interesting.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that, and I'll link it to the show notes. And as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, Casey, like you're going to do this. You're going to go in, you're going to turn off all the red bubble notifications, like you're going to do this. And then I'm thinking of like, why have I not already done this? What is my hesitation to do it? And I think it is this, like, I guess it is these beliefs we have that are not true about why we need to know things immediately. Like, oh, if I don't respond to that email, I'm going to miss this opportunity. Or if I don't respond to, okay, so like social media presence. If you use social media for a business component, which a lot of people do now, then we all know, to play with the algorithms and like play in that game, like you should be responding immediately to comments and stuff. So then it just gets hard because like how much of it is rationalization versus some of it is grounded in actual facts of the way these apps have designed themselves.
Well, I think, they're designed to hijack our brain or hijack our mind and to make us believe that we can't make it without it or we can't be successful without it. And, like I have social media. I think social media is great. You connect with people you haven't seen in a long time. That's nice. You're able to see what people are doing in their lives. That's wonderful. But I go on my social media, maybe 30 minutes in the morning and that's it. But, that part about we're missing out, that fear of missing out, FOMO, that's like a human, that's one of the ways that our minds are hijacked by thinking, that we're going to miss out on something. But we're actually missing out on a lot more when we're so caught up in every detail that's going on. And we're, run from this detail on this social media to this detail on this social media. We're missing out on a peaceful, calm life that we could be living, if we were not so distracted by other people's lives that they are living. Like we're not living our life when we have our head down and we're swiping and liking.
Right. And to your point, we're missing those moments in the car to chat or joke around with something with our significant other. We're missing the moments at the dinner table to have a conversation with our child about what they did that day or what they want to do tomorrow or whatever it may be. So you're right. It's kind of like, do you want to miss out on the virtual life that you aren't a part of, or do you want to miss out on the life that you're actually living and the people who are within an arm's reach of you?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying like, get rid of all your social media. I have social media. I think it's great. But, I use it very consciously, very intentionally. Think about when you get in the car with someone, especially moms, you get in the car and dads, your kids are your captive audience. And, there's no better time than to talk to them when we get in the car at the end of the day from school. But so many times I see the kids get in the car, the moms are texting, the kids get in, they turn on the TV on the back of the seat, and it's like, none of how was your day? I'm glad to see you. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. No sharing. No, just dive into the impersonal world of technology.
Yeah. Or they try and the kids don't answer because they're distracted by the technology because they don't have the self-awareness that we should hopefully have or start to develop to be more intentional about your digital device usage.
We're training them not to have it, by the behavior that we model, that trains them not to have it.
Yes. Okay. Oh, I love it. It's difficult, but it's definitely necessary. And I feel inspired to make some changes in my own life.
You're going to feel so much better. That's the thing that I got excited about. Like, I don't want to be like a doomsday, technology is really good. I really like it, but I made friends with it and it doesn't rule my life. And I feel so much better physically, mentally, emotionally. It makes a big difference how we use it.
Oh, I know you're right. So it was last year, I think, I challenged myself. I did an entire weekend unplugged. So I found a little Airbnb that was like 45 minutes away, like cute little kind of cabin thing on the river. And I was like, all right, no devices. So I got there, I turned off my phone, didn't bring my computer, nothing. And it was really interesting because at first I had a lot of anxiety about not having the phone on and what if somebody needs me, and but once I settled into it, oh, it felt so good to not have to worry about what might be coming through on the phone.
And, I don't, right now, I'm not watching the news. And I told my mom, who sits in front of it all day long, if there's anything important that I really need to know, will you just let me know, Mom? And, it makes a huge difference in my day and in my life and my outlook. And so I just, that was just a choice that I made to make my life better, like the one that you just shared. That was a great idea. And I think we should all do that. I would add.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. It's a relevant topic. It's a necessary topic. It's a tough topic because I think a lot of us know we need to make some changes, and then it comes down to having, the strength and the willpower to actually do it. But I think, to your point, if we can just try it and then notice how we feel, right, that'll probably help us stick with a healthier relationship with our technology.
Yes. It's all about the healthy relationship with it. That was a great way to put it.
Thank you. All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, get your books, all of that good stuff.
Okay. My book is Connected and Engaged, and you can buy it at Amazon or Barnes & Nobles. You can go onto my website, drlorywhatley.com, and you can buy it through there. And then, as I said, there's a ton of information on my website. And if you decide that you need to talk to me, I'm glad to, if you have questions about what we talked about today, you can email me straight from there. My contact information is on the website. So I'm on social media as well, Facebook and Instagram, and maybe I think LinkedIn. So under Dr. Lori Whatley.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a joy to be here and talk to you. Obviously, I really enjoy talking about this topic. So it's always a treat for me to get to share.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss next week's episode with Katie B. It's a fun one. It's a spiritual one. It's just a really good one. Make sure you are following the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at The Better You Podcast. I'm probably going to do a little bit of rebranding and kind of change my strategy with that to make it a little bit more fun for everybody. We'll see. It's always learning, constantly learning how to do this. If you enjoyed this episode, the best thing you can do is send it to a friend. Just send it to somebody you think will enjoy it. That'll really help me grow the podcast. You can also help by leaving a rating or a review. That matters a lot in the podcasting algorithm world. And if you have feedback for me, guest suggestions, topic suggestions, whatever it may be, then you can reach me at thebetteryoupodcast@gmail.com. That is it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week.